reality for many, many Ghanaians in the Volta region today. It's been going on for over a week and just keeps getting worse every day. Let's try and figure out the solutions. We're joined on the phone right now by Edward Akosombo Dam. He's the Deputy Chief Executive for Engineering and Operations at the Volta River Authority. Also on the phone is Seji Saji. He's the Deputy Director General of NADMO. Gentlemen, good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah. If I may start with you, Mr. Obinkenzo, we understand that before all of this, there were some simulation exercises and engagement in the community. Can you brief us just very quickly on what these simulations revealed about how this spillage will go?
Okay. Good morning to all our listeners. The simulation was part of our normal.
Let me listen here.
Was part of our normal operation procedures that were supposed to be carrying out simulation about every 10 years.
Right.
To prepare the communities of in case there should be flooding, what they should do. So it was more of a preparation towards this situation that we find ourselves in today. Because per our forecast, we knew that such thing will happen this year. So that's why we carried out those simulations.
When did you do it?
The simulation was done somewhere in May.
Right.
That was the Dahoso program, where all the agencies were brought together, the communities, and it went very well. I should say it went very well. The communities were well prepared. They knew what was coming, what they should do in case it should happen.
So during this exercise, did you inform these community members that when you do the spilling in October or September, that it would flood their communities and they would have to move?
Yes, they were informed. Just to state here, we have what we call the emergency preparedness plan, where all the 9 districts which are normally affected by this spillage were communicated to. And that program was followed to the latter. All of them were informed. All of them knew what they have to do. Safe havens were earmarked in case it happens, where she should go and what will be done from there. So they were all informed, and all of them were in the picture. The communities were aware. Some of the community members were involved in that simulation that were carried out.
Right. Of course, now we're seeing that something very different is happening. These communities have not moved to safe havens, and they are seeing their property being washed away, and it's continuing. Can you tell us about that? How much longer will this spilling process go?
To answer your question, we knew that per our forecast, we knew that the dam level will be going high. So as in September 15th, we started the spillage gradually per the forecast, hoping that by middle of October or end of September, the water inflows will recede, so that at least we can start closing the gate. Per the forecast as we see today, the inflow is a bit more than what we really anticipated that to come in. So that's why we find ourselves in it. But as we track the forecast, we know that by middle of October to the end of October, the inflow should recede drastically. And from there, we'll start really making other arrangements to reduce the spillage. So we are monitoring.
Right, which means that there is no clear timeline available to VRA as to when this will definitively come to an end.
Per data that we collected over the years, we know that from mid of October, the water inflow recedes. Yesterday, the inflow was almost 400,000. As we speak today, the inflow today is about 348,000. So we are tracking, and we think we are on track to achieve per the data that we've collected over the years that the water will start receding from mid of October, hopefully to the end of October. where we can make the best decisions for those affected the community, at the same time save the dam.
You mentioned that the water that you have seen is more than you anticipated in the simulation. By how much?
Per our forecast, it's supposed to be somewhere around 175,000. But today, I have to say it's about 200% more than what we were anticipating. So,
that is a huge difference, a huge disparity. What accounts for it?
Well, as forecasted by the meteorological, this year is supposed to be the El Nino year, where you should expect less rain. But the whole dynamics have changed. Ghana Meteorological changed their forecast somewhere in the middle of August. That's going to we are going to experience more rain this year. That's why we started the spillage early enough to reduce the volumes in the dam so that we can take in more. But as we speak, the volumes are really a bit high. So we are hoping that it will reduce.
Okay. So if I'm clear on the timelines, the simulation was sometime earlier this year in May. During that simulation, you had a certain expectation of volumes. You communicated that to all stakeholders. Then in August, there was a change. Meteorological services indicated that there's going to be a lot more than you anticipated. Once that new information came in, what did VRA do in terms of communicating to those affected?
From Ghana Meteorological, the forecast didn't say that it's going to be more than what we've anticipated over the past 10 years. No. It said that instead of being less rain this year, the rain should be more this year. So by tracking, we know that we're on track with the inflows that were coming. We're very, very on track.
Right.
Just the abnormality just happened somewhere in the towards the end of September. That's where the abnormality just came.
But this was still before you did the controlled spill.
Please come in again.
But this was still before you did the controlled spillage, correct? Yes. So when this abnormality set in, when you realized that you're going to be dealing with higher volumes than 200% higher volumes than you anticipated, how did VRA deal with this in terms of communication?
As I said, for the emergency preparedness plan, we have to trigger the stage 2, and all the communities, the districts were informed accordingly. So at least the process was followed through to the latter. The agencies, all that are expected to have information about this to act on, were communicated to. The districts were aware that the volumes were going to. Our people were on the ground informing the people that the water is going to go up. So the plan was followed through to the latter.
Okay. Now, Mr. Obinkenzo, you indicated that you informed all the stakeholders. I'm just curious because you talked about having done the simulation in May, and the first controlled spillage started on the 15th of September. Am I right?
Yes.
Now, I saw a statement that you issued on the 13th of September, right?
Yes.
In that statement, you did not indicate the date you were going to begin the controlled spillage, right?
Yes.
So when you informed, at what time, when did you inform these stakeholders, and did you tell them the exact date that you were going to begin the controlled spillage?
Yes, we did. A letter was issued to all the agencies that needed to be informed a week ahead per the EPP program. So the protocols means that we have to send our information ahead. We did the same thing last year, but fortunately for us, the volumes were not so high, so we didn't do the spillage. So it was communicated, and then we have to put it into the press as required by the EPP.
But
so they were informed.
Okay, what I see here that you've put in the press said that the reservoir levels as of today, and that's the third paragraph, suggest that we may need to to commence controlled spilling in the coming days should the situation persist.
Yes.
So if I pick this and I look at it, as you agree, I say something could happen, but not of certainty. Are you saying that even though you released this, you had indicated to the assemblies that you were going to spill, and other stakeholders, you're going to spill exactly on the 15th of September?
Yes, it was communicated accordingly.
So why is it not in this document, which was made public for all?
Oh, well, the date of spilling normally is communicated to the district, and they have to communicate to the people in their community. So the 15th was stated clearly that 15th will start control spilling. The control spilling that was started, we knew that it will not affect anybody. It will just be a normal operational spilling. Nobody will be affected. So nobody heard of this when we started the control spilling. So that was what happened.
But if nobody heard when you started the controlled spillage, today it has gotten out of hand and people have been affected. The point is, since you indicated that it was, the inflows were more than you expected, at any given point when you had to spill and the volumes that you had to spill, were these information shared with the relevant stakeholders?
Oh yes, we did that. While the volumes were increasing, we communicate accordingly.
So just by way of clarification, by way of finding out, at what points did you communicate to the various stakeholders? You said a week to the 15th. I'll take that to mean the 8th of September. After the 8th of September, on which other dates did you communicate to these stakeholders, and what was contained in the information you were sharing with them?
I have to get the exact date, but the communication went to them, and there was even a press release that based on the inflows coming in, we have to increase the spillage. So, per records, there was further press statement that was issued about last week thereabout, that we have to increase the volume because the water coming is a lot.
Okay.
But before then, the communities were also informed per the emergency preparedness plan.
Okay.
We have to communicate and inform them the volumes that will come in.
Just before I bring in Sergi Saji, last week, by the time I saw the communication over the weekend, in places like Mepe, homes had begun flooding. So before another release came out, I had gotten information of homes being flooded, areas being submerged as a result. I'll come back to you on that, but let's bring in Sergi Saji, who is Deputy Director General of NADMO. Sergi, good morning once again. So here we are today. The people have been affected by the spillage. They cry and say, we need help. You have been there. You were informed before the spillage, according to what the Volta River Authority has been telling us. How come today we're still talking about giving help to the people when that should have been taken care of long ago?
Thank you, Winston, and good morning to you and your listeners. Before I go on to your question, just a little clarification about how this process of notification, getting the district assemblies and the communities informed.
Okay.
Already for quite some time now, VRA has some standing engagement with all the districts, and it is those standing engagement that have led to the demarcation of safe havens across all the 9 districts downstream the Volta River. So last year, somewhere November, December, the VRA approached NADMO that they want to collaborate with us to simulate their emergency preparedness plan. We were quite impressed because a lot of institutions in this country don't even have an EPP. So they had an EPP and they did simulation every year, mostly tabletop. So this time they wanted to carry out a full-scale simulation exercise. Now, this is the procedure we used. The procedure was also part of conscientizing or getting the communities and all the 9 districts aware. We have a structure called the Disaster Management Committee. This is a statutory committee at various assemblies established by law that has all heads of agencies in every particular district. That's the head of fire service, head of ambulance service, head of Ghana Education Service, the Agric Directorate, all these committees. This is our disaster management committee at the district level, chaired by the district chief executive. Now, we think that this is the highest decision-taking body in that district, that if any information gets to this group, it means that effectively the district has been informed, because what happens then is that the assembly also comprises of the assemblymen, and all the assemblymen all of them come from various localities, and this information goes down through that channel. So in carrying out the simulation exercise, we had series of planning meetings and training all these heads of agencies that we mentioned, and because of lack of resources, we didn't carry out the full-scale exercise in all the 9 districts. What we did was that we had a full scale in 3 districts and had notional events in the rest of the 6 districts. By notional events, what I mean by that is that we were not going to go on the ground, but the team of the Disaster Management Committee was at an emergency operations center. Information will come to them that, well, whatever has spilled at this rate, it is possible, and actions should be taken. All the heads of agencies sitting at that table will quickly then write out what actions they were going to take. Okay. This was the notional event in the 6th district. Interestingly, North Tongu was one of the places we did the full-scale exercise, and we had the full-scale exercise at Mepe, where we have the problem now. Little do we know that after the simulation exercise, we're going to have an event like this. So, in the middle of September, when VRA actually came to our offices, had meetings with us that this was the situation of the dam and they were going to spill, we quickly also activated our channel. We wrote to all the districts that were involved, all the 9 districts, to let them know that this is the information that we have gotten. Our staff will have to go into the communities and do sensitization together with the various assemblymen. I think the challenge we are having now is because of the sudden increase in the volume of water that is coming now, and it is so sudden that it caught a lot of people unaware. So as for preparation, NADMO had been prepared in terms of doing the sensitization and putting the information out there together with VRA. Our challenge is how the whole thing happened. It happened so suddenly. The increase in the rate of spillage, and VRA explains that this is due to increase in the rate of inflows from the catchment areas upstream into the dam.
Right.
But most importantly, at this point for us as NADMO, we are looking at trying to rescue or bring to the barest loss to property and life. As we speak, we have been able to move a lot of people to the safe havens that we have predetermined before this incident happened. And we have been able to move some relief items to them. But because this situation is unfolding and things are happening very fast, we are stepping up our approach. So we are currently in Bator now. From here we are moving back to Central Town. This is North Town, to Central Town, then to South Town. All these places have some amount of relief items that we are distributing. Right. But these relief items are dry food items and non-food items. We are getting to the point where we have to quickly start doing wet rations, that is cooked food, because if you give the people food, how are they going to prepare it? Quite a lot of them are the safe havens.
Mr. Saji, what you're telling us is that you have been aware since May that there will be spillage and the spillage will cause flooding. You just didn't know the extent of it, but you knew there would be flooding, and so you prepared these communities and identified safe havens and so forth.
Yeah.
You've done this since May.
Yes.
So why were the community members not in the safe havens? Why are you now, after the flooding, sending relief items and trying to move them out of the way of danger?
Okay, because as of May, the event had not happened.
But
and even in September, when the spill started, what we started doing was to inform all community members that we have designated safe havens. This was done on their local radio stations. This was done in the community by assemblymen and their unit committee members. But you know our Ghanaian attitude until the event starts unfolding.
Right.
People don't even believe this, because I am told that this level of inundation, especially at Mefe and its surrounding, the last time they had it was 1960 something, when I was not even born. So it is difficult for some people to even conceptualize that something like that will happen. So even the warnings, people did not take heed to the warning the way they should. But as for the information, it actually went out there.
I guess my question is this: if you knew there would be some flooding, even though you didn't know the extent of it, why didn't you preempt the flooding? Because you knew before the spillage was done. Why didn't you ask people to move before? Why didn't you move your own supplies, your mattresses and your dried foods, to the safe havens so that it will be ready for those who need it before the spillage was done?
No, but that's exactly what we did, because the day before the rate of flow was increased, VRA notified us, and that was the day we moved straight to Central Town with relief items and had some in the safe havens. Now, before the people moved to safe haven, we have had mattresses, blankets, and all these little things that would help them settle a bit comfortably at those safe havens. So we actually did that when we had the information that the rate of spill was going to increase, because the rate of spill between what was happening from the 15th to right down to Monday was quite controlled and was not causing this widespread inundation. It was what happened between Monday going into Tuesday up to today. That is what we are seeing, the drastic inundation now.
So what you're saying is that you had already set up these safe havens, you'd provided your relief items, but the people refused to go there. When you went to ask them to move, they refused.
Yes. No, but at that time, the spill started on the 15th. And here you are telling people that VRA is spilling. There's a likelihood of inundation, so you should move to safe havens. Now, VRA started spilling about 2 weeks ago, and you are still in your home, and the water hasn't come to your home. At that time, you want to wait and see, and that is the typical Ghanaian attitude, to wait and see.
Yeah, but you knew better. You knew it was going to, flood. So why didn't you, take every means necessary?
What you are saying is that going to a certain level that we call compulsory evacuation. So that when we force people against their wish and move them to those places, because normally we do voluntary evacuation first. When it gets to a point that the person doesn't want to move for some reasons, then we do the compulsory evacuation. Yes, we didn't do compulsory evacuation.
Why not?
Well, that is a thing to do. Imagine moving this number of people by force. How are you going to get that done? What it meant was that we needed to involve all the state security agencies to get that done.
Should you not have done that, seeing what is happening now?
Well, because the situation was unfolding, as I said earlier, it got to a point where everybody started moving themselves.
It was too late by then, wasn't it?
Well, for quite some time now, I've not seen any situation that we have compulsorily evacuated this number of people, because it's quite a very difficult thing to do.
But that is the point of NADMO, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, it forms part of what we do. But as I'm just trying to let you understand and see the picture, how difficult it to be to move somebody compulsorily from his house.
Right. Let's bring in the DCE of North Tongu, Mr. Osborne Divine Fenu. Mr. Fenu, thank you for your time. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you.
Well, now your people are, in tatters. But it turns out you knew in advance that this was coming. How did this happen?
Thank you. As Sajia said, the situation has gone beyond us, and I don't know. We actually informed all stakeholders. The community members were informed, but it's very, very difficult to move them out compulsorily. Many of them didn't want to go. Yes, because they think that the resources will not be there to take care of them, and all that. That is the difficulty we had.
But this was a disaster that was looming. You had the information in advance. The people didn't know what you know. And you are responsible for them administratively. Why didn't you do everything in your power to move your people to safety before disaster struck?
Yes, we as I communicated to you earlier, we did our maximum best to convince them to move. Those who agreed, those who accepted had moved, and resources and needed to make sure there are people are properly catered for when they move to those safe havens.
Right. Now, according to the VRA, it's not entirely clear when this thing will end.
Yeah.
There's more spillage to come.
Yes.
You weren't able to move them to begin with, but now the reality has beset you. What is the plan to keep people safe as even more water comes their way?
Yeah, so currently we identify more safer and higher grounds, and are moving people there, serving them with food, water, and other things that we could do to actually keep people safe and secure. So we are doing it, and it's a continuous process. We are still doing it.
Sustainable is this? How sustainable is this? Do you have enough supplies to keep people in safe havens for, say, a month, 2 months? What are the timelines per your planning and logistics?
Yes, we don't have enough resources, and so let me also use the medium to appeal to everybody.
You should call the truck driver
to get enough relief items to take care of our people. We don't have much. We need lots of resources. Financially, we are down as an assembly, so we need support from everybody to help keep save lives and keep us alive.
Right. Let's talk about the lessons, because, I mean, granted that nobody anticipated the extent of this, but, you admit that you did have prior information, but were unable to move people before disaster struck. Let's talk about the learnings from this.
Yes, I think that VRA needs to do a lot more. Dredging the river continuously to take away the aquatic waste. We as citizens and individuals should also do the right thing and build at proper places that are acceptable. A lot of people have built on waterways as well, and so moving on, we have to make the law work, and then finally, I think that VRA and stakeholders to consider resettling our people at higher grounds after this event.
Now, what about you as DCE? You were part of the simulation exercise. You had the information that there will be flooding. What will you do in the future to ensure that you move people out of harm's way before such a thing happens? Because it's not the last time Akosombo will be spilled.
Yeah, so we will put every step in place to make sure that people move. Those who do not want to move, we will ensure that they move and the right things are done.
What are these steps you put in place? How will you ensure that they move?
We will use the appropriate channels, the security, our local authority, our chiefs, and those other powerful people who can speak to our people to understand. We will engage all the stakeholders to ensure that our people move. NADMO and all other stakeholders that are involved, we have to engage to move on.
Right. I want to say a big thank you to you. Mr. Osborne Divine Fenu is the DC for North Tongu. His district certainly inundated with water from the spillage of the Akosombo Dam. Seji Saji also spoke to us. He's the Deputy Director General of NADMO. And before him, we heard from Edward Eko Obinkenzo, Deputy Chief Executive, Engineering and Operations for the Volta River Authority. We want to thank you all for your time this morning. Ray.
We tried. That's what we are saying, that we planned, but we were overwhelmed by the situation. We probably underplanned, so we couldn't deploy on time. Yeah, but all of this does not assuage the pain, the loss, and the very things that the people have gone through. So perhaps it should be our national focus now. We should direct more resources to these areas because it appears it's not going to end anytime soon. Maybe in the future we'll have another conversation about the extent to which we everybody does the same thing, but we do it in a very weird way. Yes, we actually but I think the focus should rather be now, how do we get help to the people? If we can get people out of the places, get them to safer places, provide them the convenience and the relief that they require. If people can relocate to family members' place, at least for now, and we can in the future talk about restitution. How do we get to restore them to the lives they lived previously? And maybe you can move it up from there. But as to how we feel are things that we plan to do, and we do it in a way that appears to be awkward and sometimes surprising, well, that's the Republic of Ghana. Because this morning, it is people who have lived in a certain place for a very long time, who have had family, who have connections, who have farms, who have businesses, who are losing these businesses by no fault of theirs in any way. And yes, the human beings can move, but what would they have done with their business in any way? Within the period that they had, they were supposed to move all their fish farms from there within the short period they had, and all of that. So some of these things we need to now move beyond the we have spilled, we are going to continue spilling, and I should move to higher grounds into how do we get to help you going into the future to restore you to the life or something close to that, so that it's not made to look like they become victims of a situation they did not contribute to and they did not in any way participate in or did not sign up for.
Yeah, I mean, you see, all these things are a cow. This is a cost that we can't afford, especially not at this time in our history. You see, and the thing that concerns me is that I sincerely doubt that there's been any learning. That was the question I was, hoping for, a convincing answer from the DCE, that somehow the modus operandi will change or has changed so that in the future things will be done differently. But I'm sorry, our history tells us that we don't learn. How many times have we spilled the Wager Dam? Were the same people not affected each time? Was the same NADMO not called in each time? How many times has Burkina Faso spilled the Bagre Dam? Were the same farms and families not affected? Did the same NADMO not come in with the same inadequate resources? So, at what point do we learn from our mistakes? That's my concern.